are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The movement was begun by a scientist who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent. We have been lulled into a trance. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered.
They want their weapons.
Look out for Charlie.
I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.
This is something that I've been looking for a long time. And what I showed you some videos back was a diver diving in the water in a cave underground, and the camera that they were using was picking up V2K signals. So these ELF V2K signals were coming right through the earth and into the camera, through the water, through everything. And I had heard this before, but needed a better example, and I finally found it. And what this is a jet at 80,000 feet using a cell phone to record video with. And that's key, because it seems as though expensive cameras / Hollywood cameras seem to have a blanker on them that blocks these signals out. And as we know, the cell phone doesn't. And right around this point in the video, I started to hear it. I'm only going to play you a few seconds, but my little ninja ears heard right away that the signal was in this video at 80,000 feet. So if you can't hear that, sorry, but I can, and I'm going to prove it to you. So what does this tell you? This tells you that this is absolutely a Haarp-like, I didn't say it was coming from Haarp, it's a Haarp-like signal. It's bouncing off the ionosphere, and it's coming back down to Earth and then penetrating the Earth. Because there it is loud at 80,000 feet. I'm going to show you. So just like the woodpecker, you know, I've said for years that it's coming through the power lines and it's on the power grid, and it is on the power grid. But it is clearly not coming from the power grid. It's piggybacking on it. So it's definitely hopping off the ionosphere. So let's get there and check that out. Here is one of the stages of the jet engine. There's no talking in this, and that's what I needed, was a video with no talking at all. Just an engine or something running to pick up this signal, because it jumps onto other noise. It rides on noise. So let's check out, like, let's say 20 seconds of this stage. Now, this is the fully processed clip. You know what? I'm going to play the whole thing because you need to hear it. This is coming off that jet engine, proving that it is 80,000 feet in the air. It's clearly being broadcast by a giant radio transmitter, or they're bouncing signals off the ionosphere. And I would say that they're using the ionosphere. This is what my ears heard within that jet engine. We'll go from where we left off. 100% V2K signal at 80,000 feet. Here's the original jet again for another couple seconds. And if you listen closely, you can clearly hear it. It's just like a fan or a refrigerator or air conditioner or anything else that makes noise like that. You can hear the talking in the background. Now, here's what they were talking about a while back, years ago, about Haarp-type signals.
And what he said is, if we could ever figure out how to electronically stroke the ionosphere in just the right way, we could return a signal to the Earth that would manipulate the behavior of populations over huge geographic areas. Now, what was important about that is, in 1969, when he made that quote, and in the early 70s when it was re-quoted by Brzezinski, the technology, as far as we know, didn't exist. Haarp provided that way to electronically stroke the ionosphere in just the right way. Now, going back to this slide, this is a high-frequency transmitter that, through primary and secondary effects, can actually cover 16 decades of frequency, everything from very low frequency to visible light, by manipulating the signal and manipulating components of the natural environment. Think about it as if you're plugging in with this little bitty small transmitter into the Earth and then being able to manipulate the Earth by manipulating the energy itself and being able to capitalize on that energy, which is huge amount of energy that the Earth has available to it if you could figure out how to trigger it. And that's really what a lot of Haarp was all about.
And what you have to remember is the hum, strange sounds heard around the world, V2K, all these modern haunted houses, all this stuff started happening in the numbers that it is happening these days after Haarp went online in 1991. That's when so many people started to have experiences like this. So keep that in mind.
Now, this idea of earth-penetrating tomography in the ELF range, within that range, if we think about sort of where our brains are at, in our deepest states of sleep, 1 to 4 hertz, delta state, where we're really out cold.
And this is why everybody who is sleeping is targeted. It's not just quote-unquote TIs who are targeted. When people sleep, this starts to interact with the brain. This is why, people falling asleep start to hear strange sounds now. They'll hear roosters or an alarm clock go off, like an old school alarm clock, just really ridiculous stuff. And then as they get deeper into sleep, it starts to interact with them back and forth. That's what happens. So in sleep, everybody is a quote-unquote target.
Theta running approximately 4 to 7 hertz or pulses per second, vibrations per second. This is where you are in that kind of twilight stage between awake and asleep, where you're conscious of your dreams. This is where 3 to 6 year olds spend most of their time. I have 5 children. I remember this. I got 4 grandchildren. I remember this. They confuse the imaginary with the real because this is where they're at. And we call them attention deficit disordered, and they're not.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, you have to be very, very, very careful of disingenuous information. Like people that are saying, I know that it's so-and-so doing this, or blah, 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 blah. There's tons of disingenuous information out there with no proof at all. And although I've put out a couple videos theorizing about delivery bots, and a couple other things that I've just theorized about. When it comes to this information, I don't put anything out unless I have some kind of proof behind it. Now, I talked about sleeping and the brain interacting with this as soon as anybody falls asleep. Now, this is somebody that doesn't consider themselves targeted, but had been talking in their sleep. And I hit the Holy Grail because I finally got them to record a segment where they are talking in their sleep, just here and there. And they say a couple things, but the key spot is the breathing here, because the recording was right next to their mouth. So check this out for a minute. Now, what's the key factor here? Remember, this always rides on noise. Whether it's noise you create, your car engine, the jet engine I just showed you, your refrigerator, whatever, it rides on noise. Now let's check this out. This is the same spot. It's been processed by me. This is the breathing. This is a manual process. I didn't use any predetermined noise reduction. I didn't use any plugins like that. This is all done by hand to tweak the audio in a way where you can hear what's going on behind it. So let's listen to that breathing segment again where it's been tweaked out. Let's listen to a chunk of that I have slowed down just a little bit. I think I slowed it down to 75% of its original speed. Now let's check this out. Doesn't sound like anybody breathing anymore, does it? Now let's check this little area out here. Just more breathing. Now let's check out around it again after I've gone to work on it. When it's cooking along there, it's kind of really hard to hone in on one line here and there. But let's play part of that just looped for, I don't know, 6-7 times at least. You'll hear it. So there is clearly a voice there talking that's not supposed to be recorded. And what this is doing is interacting with the person sleeping. And what I've caught in these is that it's always argumentative, it is always negative, and it is always an argument type scenario to get the person talking. Whenever they get talking in their sleep these days, it's never about anything good. It's always some negative argument. I've said for years that the V2K signal is one signal, one radio station that is being pumped across the globe with thousands of voices in it. And people have asked this question, and it's a good question, then how do they get an individual voice to me? And this is where I actually have to go dark with my information, because I figured it out. I swear to God, I figured it out, but I need to push it a little bit further so that I can get some things set in stone and then move forward with it. But we are literally at the point where I figured it out and figured out how a radio station is being pumped to one person. And it's so simple and so easy, it's almost stupid. And I had stumbled on it a couple years ago, but I didn't think much of it until I went back recently and realized that I could get 2 messages in the same message if I didn't fuck with the frequency at all. And then I could get 3 messages and 4 and so on. And then I was like, whoa, this is totally how they're doing it. So I'm still going to keep releasing videos on other matters, but with this stuff, I'm going dark until I can get this stuff set in stone. Because with this, defense mechanisms can be built, which they're not going to be too happy about. So we're there. We're really fucking close. In fact, when I come out with this information and actually show people how this is done, people are going to be like, really? Seriously? It is so simple. It is so simple. But again, people need to be very, very careful of disingenuous information. So many people are putting out information with no proof and not even a basis to work off of. So now we know that it's underground. The signal is underground. It's totally going underground and through water, ELF, and it's up 80,000 feet. So what does that tell you? Now we know it's coming off the ionosphere. That's about it for today. Look out for Charlie.